What's going on, everyone? Welcome back along to the channel. We are back for another week of Super Rugby preview action, and of course we're bringing back the guests coming back on the show for a week without South African teams. We've got our South African man on the show. Brett, welcome back to have a look at New Zealand and Australia in Super Rugby.
Yeah, thanks very much for having me on again, Conflict. Looking forward to it.
But that's not the only, full reason we got you on. We are going to be having a look at the first match of the June Internationals, which does involve the Springboks up against Wales over in the big old US of A. So we'll be having a look at that one at the end of the just 5 matches we've got to go through here today. So we're going to kick straight into them and see what's coming up. But before we do that, we have to look at what is the most exciting thing at the moment, and that is the SuperBru League. It is really heating up in here. But before we go on to what happened last week and where we sit currently, I have to give special mention out here to Nick42, who I know watches. I didn't make it last week, and he got the yellow cap. So well done, Nick. You can see you'll be on the screen now with your great yellow cap effort, picking up from round 14. So well done. I didn't forget. I told John mention it. I didn't forget. But we move on to this round, and it's only fair that we move on to the yellow cap, which I have just oddly put on my head just for
White
your
cap.
yeah. White cap. It just doesn't work with headphones. It's just so I'll be a hipster and put it on the side, and there we go. So everyone's got the joy of watching that. So yellow cap, I'm the winner of that this week, so let's move on. Nope. But the leaderboard still got the man who won't let me forget, Driving Moore, sits at the top, and he's doing it quite comfortably at the moment. He's about 3.5 points ahead of a new second place. And Owen Davis, who's 0-1, I should add, who's sitting in second, climbing up 4. And Anti-Podal 49er is still there in the top 3. He's sitting third. But we all know, you guys all know as well, that the action isn't at the top. The hat is completely falling off my head, which is kind of fitting, isn't it, really, that it's going like that. But Johandre, yellow cap winner, the actual yellow cap winner, smoking up 11 places into 20th as well. But we'll keep going down because we know the action is further down here in the Battle of 39th. Now, Brett, I mean, last time we had you on the show, Brett, you were going through a tough spell, and I was going really, really good. I was smoking it. I was getting, half a point off the yellow cap myself, and I was screaming up the leaderboard. We've reversed roles now, and now I'm going averagely, and you're screaming up the leaderboard. You're sitting 40th. You can see on there now. I'm 39th. You're 40th. What has been the secret? Come on, enlighten us as to what's made the change. Why are you screaming up the leaderboard so late in the competition?
Oh, it's been a good turnaround, to be honest. I think I was sitting below 50th or something not too long ago. So it's been a good 2 weeks. I've been just off the yellow cap I was quite a bit off last week, but the week before that I was actually pretty close to it. I was finished 3rd or 4th or something like that. So I might need to buy a white/yellow cap as well. I don't know, it's been good. I picked a lot of upsets. I picked the Waratahs when they beat, I think it was the Blues that they beat 2 weeks ago. No, it wasn't the Blues who they beat. They beat the Highlanders 2 weeks ago.
Beat the Highlanders, unfortunately.
So I had a nice gut feeling, and after the shambles I've had this season with not trusting my gut feeling, I just went with it, and it paid off. So I've just been picking some fluky games, I guess, and I've been screaming up the ladder, and I'm gonna soar right past you up into the top 20 this week.
Saw right past. Listen to this. The yellow cap's firmly on my head now. It's under the headphones, so there's no chance of it going anywhere at all. But yeah, the battle's on. I mean, there's what do we got? 0.25 of a point between us now. And I mean, whoever goes into that international break with that lead is probably going to hear about it quite a bit.
Yep.
To the other, I would say. Yeah. So it's all happening down there. Although we're not the worst in the competition, some may say surprisingly. Magpie's down there, yellow wooden spooner. And he fell down 11 places, which is not good at all there from the old Magpie. But yeah, it's all on down there, isn't it? All on for the coming week. So this will be interesting as well because we've got the 5 games. And I wonder if we're going to be any different. Bonus points or the margin points could be a real difference maker for us in the coming week. But also a good time to mention it as well. I have just kicked off today the June International SuperBru League as well. So if you want another chance to get one of these on your head, go and join that. Everyone that's involved in the current Super Rugby pool should be getting an invite via email as well to join up in that. So Brett will be there because I've just forced him to do it right now by saying that. And everyone else hopefully will join up as well and have another go at trying to get this thing off my head, which is not going to happen because it's staying right there very, very nicely. Yeah. Right, that's the SuperBru predictor. It is heating up in there. But this is what really matters. It's the big games. It is round 16. And we've only got 5 games. So it's going to be interesting. But what really has been a big revelation over the season has been yellow cards. Now, we were talking a little bit about this before we came on, but this year we've only had 71 yellow cards as opposed to this time last year, about the Lions Tour time, that we had 136 yellow cards at this stage of the competition. That's a huge, huge difference. Do you think that it's related to the rugby that's been played this year? Do you think the games are better because of the seemingly less yellow cards? Have you ever noticed that there's been significantly less yellow cards this year?
Yeah, I have noticed. There's obviously been a decline. I think one of the biggest factors is last year is the Jaguares. Last year they were the most penalised team of the year. They probably averaged two cards a week or 3 cards a week or something. They were absolutely dreadful with their discipline last year, and now they're one of the better teams in Super Rugby this year, and they've really improved. And they're definitely one of the big factors. And I can't think of too many teams that are serial offenders for certain things. So the teams have definitely picked up their discipline, and the refs have definitely been marauding that and been giving out less cards. So it's been good for rugby this season to see less cards.
Yeah, it's interesting you say the Jaguares as well, because they are the 8th team on the ladder. They've only conceded 5 yellow cards this year, whereas a team like many are considering to be the favourites, especially after last week, the Crusaders, have the most, not by 1 card or equal at the top. They're 2 cards clear of second place. They're on 9 yellow cards for the season, where the Rebels and the Stormers are second with 7. So really goes to show that ultimately, if you've got a good team, it doesn't matter how many yellow cards you get, because you can still win the games. So that just shows you. And the complete opposite end of the spectrum, the Hurricanes and the Lions, who only have 1. So yeah, just goes to show you don't need to get no yellow cards or lots, and you can still be a successful side. So yellow cards, simply amazing this season as well. Right, let's get into the games, and because of this, we'll lose the yellow cap in a second. I just don't like to take it off. It's my good luck charm. We have the opening game of the round. It is at Forsyth Bar Stadium in Dunedin, down where it's going to be, I would imagine, about a degree, possibly, by the time the game kicks off, about 7:30. The Highlanders and the Hurricanes. Big thing for me for this game, what we've seen last week from the Crusaders and the Hurricanes. The Crusaders somehow know how to stop this Hurricanes team, how to just kill their attack. What will the Highlanders be watching for in that game to do the same? Can they have the capability to even do that after seeing what the Crusaders did?
Yeah, the Crusaders seem to have unlocked the formula, haven't they? They've got the best out of the squad. The last 2 times they played, and last year as well, there was a couple of big derbies between the Hurricanes and Crusaders as well, and I think Crusaders won both of those, if my memory serves me right. But look, the conditions were extremely in favour of the Crusaders. It was a terribly cold night, it looked like, and it was wet. And that definitely suits the Crusaders a lot better than it suited the Hurricanes, and they really showed that. I think what the Highlanders can take, obviously, will be indoors, which will suit both the styles of the Hurricanes and the Highlanders. What the Highlanders should learn from what the Crusaders showed is you just got to be clinical against the Crusaders. You can't make too many silly mistakes. You've got to kick quite well, and you've got to kick with purpose. You can't kick it to their star players and let them run it back at you. So yeah, just be very clinical and just don't make silly mistakes. And that's really what the Crusaders did last week, and they got the best of the Hurricanes.
What's interesting, I think it kind of relates a 2-part thing, but people have been saying it's been noticeable that the Highlanders have really started running out of steam in this latter part of the competition. And it's something that was said a lot at the start of the season as well, when we looked at their schedule and seeing they had both their buys inside the first, I think, 7 weeks of the competition. Now we're down here around 16, 10 weeks later after their last bye or so. Do you think that's really starting to affect them now as they start to get into the time of the season where it really matters?
Yeah, they're definitely. It's absolutely shocking organising to be quite frank. I have no idea what Sanzo were thinking when they gave Highlanders 2 byes when they really didn't need 2 byes. I remember at a point in the season looking at the Highlanders on the standings and seeing they were, 2 games behind the rest of the competition just because they had two really close byes. I think they only had a week between the 2 byes. So no idea why they did that. And you can see on their South African tour, sort of where the turning point was. They had a really good performance against the Bulls, and then they lost to the Sharks. And then since then, they've sort of been on the decline. Obviously, losing to the Waratahs is their probably biggest low point of the season. Obviously, the red card didn't help that, but it's something that they definitely wouldn't be proud of. And they're showing it really lackluster performance against the Reds last week. So they're really going to have to find some answers against this really scary looking Hurricanes team.
Yeah, and you look at the table too, it doesn't look good, really, for the Highlanders. I mean, they're only a point behind the Chiefs, which you've got to say that's got to be their target, to try and finish third in that table. But like you said, that Waratahs game especially is one they'll probably say, we should have won that match, and that could have put them on 40 points plus. So that really has been a season-defining time. I agree, that South African period, that first match, they looked absolutely brilliant and absolutely dead on their feet the very next week as well. So that's changed this season. The bye hasn't helped. And you look at a team like the Crusaders, it's almost as if they have, scheduled this to favour other teams. I know no one's going to admit that or even say the same words, but the Crusaders still have a bye to go. They're a game ahead of the rest of the competition, and it seemed like that, giving them a week this close to the end of the competition, is going to be priceless for them, and it's going to put them in a great position going into the playoffs, which obviously they're going to be in as well. But because we're this late in the week, we do have the advantage of actually seeing the lineups for these two sides, and I think pretty much as expected, especially the Highlanders really going for a strong side here. There's no messing about with resting players. The Smiths are there, the Sopowangas are there. They've got a really strong back row on that team as well. It's probably, I'd say, the best that the Highlanders could actually line up with. The midfield, Ty Wharton and Rob Thompson are really keeping up the likes of Matt Faddis and players like that as well. So this is the best they can offer. Decent bench as well. When you got the new All Black Frizzell sitting on the bench, ready to come on there, and Buckman as well, another one who's going to be massive for them coming on later on in the second half. So this is a good Highlanders side. Interesting thing, I think, from the Hurricanes' perspective, is they've gone again with Geordie Barrett in the centres. So, I mean, it's a scary backline, isn't it? I mean, when you got Perenara, Barrett, Lamb, Lau Mape, Geordie Barrett, Savia, and then Milner Scudder at fullback, it's just so destructive. And the Highlanders are going to have to be on their game defensively to have any chance against this Hurricanes side. Anything stand out in these two lineups for you for this match?
Yeah, pretty much just what you've touched on. Pretty much just especially the back three, just this battle of this really good back three from both teams. Obviously, Hurricanes having the more high-profile one, but the Highlanders have looked very scary on counter-attack, especially with a guy like Ben Smith. He's just world-class, best fullback in the world. He can just make attacks out of nothing, and there's no replacement for that. Just pure talent and just pure knowledge of the game, which he has done. Very scary player, and he lifts every team that he plays for. So I definitely wouldn't write the Highlanders out of this one.
It's interesting you look at those back three as well. You mentioned Tavita Lee, Waisaki Naholo, Ben Smith up against Lamb, Sevilla and Milner Scudder. You wouldn't normally say the Highlanders actually have the advantage of having 2 out of 3 All Blacks in that, whereas the Hurricanes only have 1, and possibly you'd argue a lucky one at that as well. So interesting battle it's going to be, but it could be really close, but it could be a devastatingly bad match if one of the teams aren't on song, I would imagine. Yeah. So the Highlanders Hurricanes opening game of the round. Who have you got for this one?
I think I've mainly gone just off the performance last week. The Highlanders quite unconvincing over the Reds. I think the Hurricanes are the better squad, so I've got the Hurricanes by 10.
Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. It's interesting you mention the Reds, because I think that Reds team is better than they get a lot of credit for. Yeah. We were talking before about their position on the table. They're way down on 4th, and it doesn't, I think, reflect how well they've played this season. But again, season-defining matches with them, like against the Sunwolves and matches like that, haven't helped their story along the way. But on their day, I think they're one of the definitely better Australian teams, if not the best Australian side. Which, I mean, we'll get on to those two later on in the piece. But for this one, I'm going to agree with you. I'm going the Hurricanes as well, but I'm going by just 3 lonely little points. I think it could be a cracker. But I think it's going to be 3 points, like, 46-43 or something along those lines, because there's going to be tries.
Yeah.
You don't have backlines like that and not have tries. So going to be a lot of them in that one in Dunedin for the opening match of the weekend. So we go on to Saturday and we head away to Eden Park, and a nice little afternoon game as well, which is a rarity, isn't it, in modern day professional rugby these days? Yeah. But the Blues are up against the Rebels. Now, I think big talking point for me on this one is the Blues team. So Rieko Ioane out with All Blacks resting schedule. I mean, like the Blues really need that. And the possibility that Sonny Bill Williams has been bracketed with injury, not to start this match. 2 massive, I mean, possibly the biggest 2 people you could take out of this game for the Blues. If they lose them, how's that going to affect them? Like, not only just for the squad, but mentally as well, knowing that they have those key guys not there.
Oh, yeah, those guys, like you said, are just absolutely key to the Blues attack, especially, Sonny Bill has been around for so long and he's got such a good rugby brain, and his offloads are just amazing, what he can do. And obviously just Rieko Ioane, the pure finisher, probably will be starting for the All Blacks again this year. Big losses. The All Blacks resting schedule is quite interesting. That the All Blacks reserve all these resting periods for their players, which makes sense, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. But would be quite frustrating for these Super Rugby teams who want to win and want to win quite badly, and especially the Blues, probably out of the playoff picture now, but still want to get some wins on the board and just deliver back to their fans who have been supporting them. So very frustrating and a huge loss for them, and it could prove costly for this side.
And it's got to be a game for the Blues that they would consider one they should be winning, or they could win, a good chance they could win this one as well. On the Rebels side of things, a big question for me, it's a question we've been saying all season long, it's the number 10 jumper. What have you made of Reece Hodge starting there the last couple of weeks?
I'm not a big fan of position switching. Even a guy like Geordie Barrett playing the centres, I'm not a big fan of. I think the position you have your success and you should develop that and become better. And you've seen guys like Damon McKenzie moving to 10 for fullback, but it's interesting. He's obviously a good goal kicker, Reece Hodge, and he's a good general play kicker as well. So he hasn't had bad performances, but he hasn't had absolutely outstanding performances in the 10s jersey yet anyway. So, but also looking at over their choices for 10, they're quite few and far between. So I can understand why they've done it.
Yeah, and do you think, given their options like Debrasini, obviously not there, is this better? Is this the way forward for them? Do they need to look elsewhere? Like personally, I've been completely unconvinced by what he's offered Debrasini in that, and he's kind of just been. I guess any success he's had has been mainly from the team around him rather than actually through his own performances. He's not done anything special. What do you think about young Maddox? There's a lot of talk about him getting a start at 10. Do you think it's time that they actually do take the plunge on that?
Yeah, it's another position switch, isn't it? It's really difficult when you keep a lot of the time when you move young players around and make them utility players. They sort of lose their worth in one position and they tend to drift around quite a bit, and they lose a lot of their sort of their skill level. It's probably not the right word to use, but look, if they think that's the way forward, another thing I think Australian rugby need to really get on is Quade Cooper. He's getting paid a huge salary to play in Brisbane's domestic comp, and he's happy because he's getting paid his normal Super Rugby salary, and he gets to do less training and less contact and gets to have more fun. And so he's just campy in the Brisbane comp right now and is not doing anything else, not playing for the Reds. Brad Thorne doesn't want him. And the ARU paying him a huge contract. And if everything they said last year when they revamped the Super Rugby competition about how short they are and how strapped they are for cash, they really need to sit down with Quade and move him somewhere else then so he can be used, because they can't pay him a huge salary to play in a club competition. It's just not economical. And I think Melbourne would be the ideal situation. Obviously, you got Will Genia there as well, so they really need to get on that and try to get him to move. And he doesn't look very keen on moving away from Queensland, so it's quite an interesting situation. But I think that's what the Rebels need to do because they're really short on tens.
And the Brumbies are keen on him as well. So they're pretty keen to get Quade Cooper into their mix as well. So someone's got to stand up and tell him what to do, or either chop the contract. Say you move to Melbourne or you move to the Brumbies, or you say goodbye to your contract. You're getting paid to play that level of rugby. Teams want you to play there. Yeah, that's what you're getting paid to do. So should be off to it as well. You did mention my next point. No Will Genia. I think it's going to be a massive lack of direction for this Rebels team as they come up against the Blues. It's two sides, I think, in pretty similar sort of positions. I think the Rebels, I should say, overall a lot better. As you look at the table, they are definitely right up there for the Australian Conference. Only 1 point behind the Waratahs. So for them, this is must win if they're going to keep that hope of getting into the playoffs by top Australian side. I mean, what do you think? Do they deserve to still be in this mix? Do you think they've been good enough overall? To me, I consider the Reds the second best Australian team. Not consistent enough, but the Rebels, if they do pick this up, and the Waratahs slip up against the Reds, and they're up there with the lead in the Australian Conference again, is it deserved, or do you think that's kind of, I don't know what you describe of it, just taking advantage of the situation?
Yeah, it is difficult because we could say that they don't deserve it, but at the end of the day, they still have those points and they're still on the table. They had a really good start to the comp, had a bit of an easy start to the whole Super Rugby competition, you could say, but they capitalised on their chances, and they went 4 or 5 in a row, I think, at a stage. So, and they have fallen off since then. The injuries haven't helped them. And their depth's been really tested, but they are one of the deeper sides in Australia, which has helped them in the long run. But it's difficult. I think I'm more with you that the Reds are the second best team in Australia, or on their day the best team in Australia. I just love watching that Reds pack, and I love watching how Brathwaite coaches them. So I do think the Reds are the better team, but the Rebels capitalise on their chances, and the Reds have done things like getting absolutely smashed by the Sunwolves, and the Rebels are 2 from 2 against the Sunwolves this season. So it's difficult to say who deserves what. At the end of the day, you can really go on what the table says, and it says that the Rebels are better at this stage.
You can only beat what's put in front of you.
Yeah.
What I want to see, I do hope the Blues go to the bench first, because I want to see Ruru versus Ruru. Scrum half battle. No one will know who's got the ball, because it'll be Ruru's both sides.
Good luck with that, useless commentators.
And it will be, it'll be New Zealand commentators, I should say, being at Eden Park. So it won't be quite as fun as if with the Australian ones. But regardless. Other thing, seriously, that I will be interested to see, I want to see more from Pierre Feta for the Blues as well. And I think against a team like the Rebels, against a 10 which probably is in his full comfort zone as well, I think is one he could really attack and make a decent chance for himself here to put a bit of a spotlight on. But Blues at home against the Rebels, what's your winner on this one?
Yeah, I think although the Blues are obviously behind the Rebels on the table, I still think the Blues are a better team. They've obviously had a tougher schedule this year, being in New Zealand, having to play New Zealand teams far more regularly. I've got the Blues by 4. It's just the fact that it's in New Zealand, and it's just been a while since Australia have won in New Zealand, hasn't it? So I don't see the Rebels breaking that streak. So I've got Blues by 4.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you as well. Not the same on margin now. I'm going Blues by 8 to take out the Rebels, just to pip them on that bonus point. That's the only reason for 8, just so that they don't get it. And as much as I don't think the Waratahs, well, you've got to say they probably do deserve to be at the top. I just, I don't think the Rebels really deserve to be there. So we'll leave the Waratahs as they are at the top. Right, next up, we're off to Waikato Stadium. I think this could possibly be game of the round. I don't know what your thoughts on that are, but the Chiefs up against the Crusaders, a really interesting one. I mean, the Chiefs just hammered by injury. I don't know how this team keeps performing or keeps getting results, but they just keep finding players to get up and continue to play at a decent level as well. Overall, though, what we seen last week from the Crusaders, do you even give the Chiefs a starting chance in this one?
Yeah, I mean, anything can happen on match day, can't it? So, never completely write a team off. I never thought the Sunwolves would demolish the Reds like they did. So, especially the Chiefs, who are not a bad team in any means, do have a chance. But, yeah, it doesn't look great against this Crusaders team. This Crusaders team is just immense, isn't it?
Mm. Last week, the Chiefs, they did probably, I think, put the most convincing performance from a New Zealand team against the Waratahs on a full 80-minute display as well. So yeah. I've got to say, the Chiefs team don't look bad, and they're buoyed by the return of what the normal captain would be in Sam Cane as well. So that should be a huge boost for them. The side still, amazingly, with all the players they have out, still has such good depth as well. When you see the likes of the Sam Cane, of course, like we talked about, but the new All Black scrum half and Tahurirangi on the bench, not even starting for this one, is going to be interesting. And the talent throughout the side has come along quite nicely. So I give the Chiefs, a bit of a chance as well.
Yeah.
But do you still consider the Crusaders, after all this time, the most depth-specific side in the competition to call on players that can consistently stand up in this competition?
Was that the Chiefs or the Crusaders, sorry?
The Crusaders.
The Crusaders?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're such a deep team, aren't they? They've just been, when a guy like Monga goes out for a couple of weeks and they don't miss beat, do they? And they're such a good team, and they're still showing that. And to sit where they're on the table right now and look so dominant and have dominant performances week to week. At times, winning games with 13 men on the field, and they just know how to win games. I think that's a good instinct to have in rugby. We see a lot of teams, both in club and test matches. There's just some teams that just know how to win, and they don't have to be the most talented team. They don't have to be the most flashy team or more stars on paper. They just need to know how to win, and that's what the Crusaders team know what to do very well. They've got a very good coach in Scott Robinson, and he's really taught them just the idea behind winning, and that it's an idea a team can adapt, and it's just one of the most important things that you can have. So no matter what the situation they're facing, no matter what the conditions, what team they're facing, they just can't. They know at any situation that they can win, and their squad helps them with that.
Looking at the squad that they've named for this team, they're still missing a Whitelock, so no Whitelock in this game, Sam Whitelock for the Crusaders, but they do welcome back one man. I'm not as huge as fan, I'll be honest, but Israel Tag back again. He was back for a few minutes, a few rounds ago, and got smacked in the head and has now gone off for another little break. Big returns for him, but any real noticeable areas in these two lineups that you think the Chiefs could get one over the Crusaders at all?
Oh, it's going to be hard, isn't it? The Crusaders both have a good backline and a good pack. I think that if the Chiefs are going to win, I think Mackenzie has to have a good game, as always. He's got to keep getting better in that 10 jersey. And yeah, it's going to be difficult for the Chiefs. There's not really one particular area that they do have an advantage over the Crusaders, which is just going to make the challenge a lot tougher.
Yeah, interesting too when you look through the sides. I think it's going to be a massive battle. Is the centres. Charlie Ngata and Anton Leonard-Brown up against Jack Goodhue, and the former Chief turned winger back into the centres at Seto Tamani Valu. Really going to be interesting to see how he goes back in the midfield as well alongside Jack Goodhue. Because, I mean, there's a lot of former All Blacks, current All Blacks, were All Blacks, not All Blacks anymore. A lot to prove for a lot of these guys as well in their team. So I'm keen to see what that backline battle does evolve from, and players that probably are feeling a little bit aggrieved that they've missed out in the team. A guy like Dali Malo probably thought he's been playing good enough to be on for shout. But I agree, Damien McKenzie. I've talked about it before a lot with Paul on Driving More. If you're going to get the best out of Damien McKenzie, you got to throw the ball behind him, make him turn around, run backwards, pick it up, and then turn around and run forwards. The defence line's a bit broken, and he's at his best. Oh, but that's right. That's what a fullback does. Okay. Didn't know. Still doesn't sink in, does it? So who are you going to go for the win? Chiefs, Crusaders?
I've gone Crusaders. by 14.
Yeah, it's pretty much straightforward, isn't it? Who's going to win this
Yeah.
one? I've obviously going to agree. If you Crusaders will do this one quite easily, I'm going to put them up by our 17 points, just to be close enough, but be different. If they win by 16, we'll both be going, damn it, we're so close. Right, we're going over the ditch, Suncorp Stadium. The Reds, the team we talked about quite a bit, considering they haven't even been in the matchup yet. They're up against the Waratahs. We talked about it a little bit already, but who is the best? Going into the stage of the competition, do the Reds, really think that this is unofficially the battle for Australian supremacy?
Oh, yeah, probably. That's probably their mindset coming to this game. They definitely do believe that they're the best team in Australia, and they want to prove that. Right now, I think it's still the Waratahs, just going off the performances over the last 3 weeks. Obviously, all against New Zealand sides, and done pretty well in all 3 of those games, and have really impressed, especially with that win over the Highlanders. So this matchup will really tell us a lot about where both teams are and where sort of the Australian conference should be ranked.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game. Big thing for me, I'm spotting between this one. It's something I think I've been calling for it, you could probably say, for the last 2 or 3 weeks. Ever since we've seen Stewart for the first time with the injury to John O'Lance, was a swap between those two. Stewart's been playing a lot at 15, John O'Lance at 10. They've finally done it. It's like, maybe they've read my comments. But Stewart's getting the start at 10 over John O'Lance, who moves to fullback. Is it going to make any difference to you? What have you made of the young kid?
Oh, he's been good, hasn't he? When he's been playing in his right position. Lance, obviously, a bit of a tough spot for me. He was at the Force last year, and he actually did pretty well at 10. And this season, Lance definitely hasn't been at his best. At 10, I think his only highlight of the season is when he got his pants pulled down in the first game. So, he's been pretty average. I do think he is better at fullback and more suited to it. It's a bit of like a Mackenzie situation, just prefers the space. And yeah, it's good to see a young guy like Stewart, especially right now in Australian rugby where they're really struggling for depth at 10. They pretty much got Bernard Foley and then no one else. So it's really good to see a young guy get put in a 10 and hopefully he develops and has a good game.
Do you think with the Waratahs coming off that pretty substantial loss to the Chiefs last week, despite it being after the win against the Highlanders, which I guess they'll take with a grain of salt because I guess it's a victory, isn't it? But
yeah.
Expecting any big backlash on them or a little bit of possibly effect for them coming into this game, knowing they reached that high, that pinnacle of finally beating the New Zealand side, only to be pretty much dumped the next week by arguably just as equal, if not lower placed side on the table. Do you think it's going to affect their mindset as they go back to Australia, possibly ruining a missed chance to go 2 out of 2 and beating New Zealand side in New Zealand as well?
Well, I don't think the Waratahs played that badly. They obviously did get beaten quite convincingly in the end, but I think they were in it for most of the game. When I was watching the game, I actually thought the Waratahs had a pretty good chance to take the win, but didn't have a very good last 30 or 20 minutes. So that's where the game slipped from them, and they were chasing it since then. But I think they still gained confidence from it. Going to New Zealand and not getting absolutely smacked is even though it sounds bad, it's a high for Australian teams at this point. So they'll take confidence on the last couple of weeks, and they really want to get a win on the board this week and take that Australian conference.
Yeah, you're right. What you say is just my next thing. They lead just by the 1 point. Like we talked about over the Rebels, they need a win, and they've got to win this game. It's a pretty desperate situation. If they don't, they could get pipped by the Rebels, and I guess it would make the Australian conference quite interesting for the last few weeks as well, for that top spot in the conference. Going through this side, I don't think there's not too much else I want to talk about on the team. I just think the Waratahs can be so wasteful. I think I find them so frustrating to just waste so many chances, drop so many balls, just do stupid things as well. So it's hard to really go off them. But who are you picking for this one?
I think I'm going the Waratahs. I think they'll have the edge in the backs, especially Cam Clark for me has been a very good player this season, especially over the last 2 rounds. Obviously, the the son of the commentator Greg Clark, who's definitely the best commentator in Australia, which is not saying much. Yeah, Cam Clark has been a good young guy. He'll be quite frustrated, and have a lot to prove this week after missing out on the Wallaby squad that was named last night on live TV over here. So, especially with guys like Nick Phipps and Ned Hannigan making it, I think he'll be quite frustrated that he didn't make it. So, he'll have a point to prove, and he's been in good form, been scoring quite a few tries over the last few weeks. So, I think guys like Israel Folau and Cam Clark, it's quite hard to stop them, and there'll definitely be some tries scored against this really good Reds defense. So, I've gone to the Waratahs by 10.
Oh, 10. I don't think you're going to go that high. Going the Waratahs as well, but I'm only going by the Waratahs by 4. So, I go quite close now for some reason. It's hard because I can see the Reds possibly winning that game. It's a game where one team could very easily not show up, and it could very easily be the Reds as well. They could just be nowhere at all and get thrashed. But the same could happen the other way if that Reds pack gets up and over the Waratahs pack, which, by Australian standards is still pretty good. It could be a pretty good win for the Reds as well. I want to pick the Reds, and I'm probably going to kick myself if they do pull this up, but I'll go with Waratahs by just a whisker, just because they're that team that never seems to be fully out of a game, like we were talking about just before with the Chiefs match. They'll never fully 100% out of it. They never get fully, completely, always thrashed as well. So go on them just a whisker, and they'll be in that right until the very bitter end of the game. Final match of the round, and this is the only one we don't have the lineups for, which is a bit of a shame. But I mean, GIO Stadium, the Brumbies hosting the Sunwolves. I mean, the glory day has come, the glory day is gone. Sunwolves just back to the usual now.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm very surprised they had 2 wins in a row this season. I expected them to not even win one game this season. So, good on them for getting 2 good performances, especially against teams like the Reds and the Stormers, who have been quite decent. Obviously, Stormers away from home is just a completely different story, and they really showed what team they are on the road. But they're not playing this week, so it doesn't really matter. Sunwolves very average last week against the Rebels. Just like the Rebels take them out of the game pretty much. So the Sunwolves really never in it. So, like I said, pretty average. Brumbies, awesome win over the Bulls last week. Did not expect that. It kind of ruined my SuperBru. I was kind of angry when I saw that result. But, the Brumbies were good. To go over the Loftus and get a win over the Bulls and have quite a short turnaround and come back to Canberra. They might think travel might be a bit of a factor, like it always is, but they are the better team when matched up against the Sunwolves. So I expect the Brumbies to come out on top.
It was a massive result. I think it was sub 10% of people picking that game picked the Brumbies to win. It was one of the ones you don't even. It wasn't even consideration. I just ticked Bulls. It was more the margin of where it'll be close or whether it'll be 10, 12 or 14 points. So a huge win for the Brumbies, and you got to say biggest of their season as well. Going through what they've played so far. I mean, for the Brumbies and the Sunwolves, their seasons are really over. I mean, not much is with 4 games to go for their season. They're 10 points behind the Rebels and the Waratahs. You'd say one of those sides are going to pick up a victory, and the chances of them getting into second, let alone top spot, is pretty much over. The Sunwolves, I mean, I think they've done their dash. I was saying with that question, I think 2 games, massive success for them, and they'll be just planning, for internationals, obviously, more than anything else, is going to be their main focus now. The rest of Super Rugby, I think, will be just about a write-off for them. But the Brumbies, a lot's going on this season, but going back to the start of the year, before they even got into things, do you think where they sit now, it's been a successful season for them, or do you think they'll be disappointed? Obviously, they're going to finish somewhere about where they are now. Do you think it's been a good or bad year?
It's been an average year, I suppose. No one ever really wants to finish sort of as low as they are. It could have been a lot worse, but I guess it could have been a lot better as well. So I don't think any team, sort of where they are on the table is going to be satisfied with it, I suppose.
I mean, I thought they were going to have a shocker this season, just because all the players they lost to changes in the team, things like that. Ultimately, they got a few good results, which I don't think they could be too upset about. On the topic, what about Sunwolves? Do you think best year of the Sunwolves, are they going to be, doing results like the Hug Warriors do in a couple of years' time?
At the current rate, I don't think so. With the squad, it's been about on par with the rest of their seasons. Last year, that was as well. They got quite a few. I think they got one or two quite big upset wins. I remember them beating the Bulls last year, which was quite a big highlight for me. It's been about on par. I'm still not really sold on Sunwolves being in Super Rugby, but hopefully they prove me wrong next year again. They've just got to get some high quality players. I think what happened in the Jaguars' favour is they had just their international team there, a lot of it anyway, and those players have been playing together for quite a long time. They all speak the same language, which helps. Whereas at the Sunwolves, you got quite a big culture clash between the team. You got guys from New Zealand, Japan, South Africa, Australia, you name it. They've got it in there, so it can be quite hard, especially from communication standpoint. A lot of those Japanese guys aren't the best English speakers from what I've seen, which is not great when you have an English coach or New Zealand coach that speaks English in Joseph. So they're just, I think the best thing they can do is get more Japanese players in there. I think they'll be that could be one of the better things they could do, just to build that continuity between Japan and the Sunwolves, like the Jags have done between Argentina and them. So I think that's the best thing they could do, and that's how they should look at building for the future.
And build a team around Hayden Parker, number one. Best fly half in Japan. Not much of an achievement, though, really, is it? Obviously, Brumbies for the win.
Yeah, I think a point that we haven't mentioned, I was talking to you before we started recording, is the Brumbies this week are putting a lot of emphasis on getting 15,000 people in the stands because their crowds have been absolutely abysmal lately. And it's getting to the point where they're not going to be able to afford the sort of, I guess, leasing our GIO stadium. So if they don't get crowd numbers, they have to downgrade to a smaller stadium, which is going to be quite heartbreaking. The most successful club in Australia playing at sort of a club rugby ground instead of a stadium. So I think if they get their 15,000 this week, they'll be injected with some morale. But if they don't and the crowd is still bad, I think it could have quite a negative effect on this Brumbies team. So that's something that you could also take into account as well. But yeah, I've got the Brumbies taking this by 12. I just think they're going to be too good for the Sunwolves, especially at home.
Well, we've got the same teams. Margins are a bit different, so maybe the margins will decide who will lead after this round. I've gone Brumbies by 16. Someone's going to get a margin bonus point here and just kill it, absolutely kill it. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But that is our 5 matches. Done and dusted. Thank goodness there's not 7. Or we'll be recording for 2 days straight. That's all right. We do still have, of course, one more match to go, which we'll touch on a little bit and make this a double header video. Special, flashy, added in the title, double header video for this one. Of course, the Springboks up against Wales. We've got the South African side for the match-up. A lot of new players on newcomers. Of course, you're on here too, pre-pick the Springbok side. I think ultimately you did a pretty good job considering the team they've picked for these games. But the side that got out there, I'm quite impressed by. What have you thought?
Was that the starting 15 or the whole squad?
Both.
Both? I think with the squad, I was mainly impressed. Obviously, like you said, I picked a lot of the people that did get selected.
The old guys.
Yeah. Guys like Bismarck and Front Stain as well. I didn't really want to see Front Stain in the squad, but he's there. I'm glad Bismarck's there. I did predict that he was going to get selected, and he did. So interesting to see where those older guys are going to play. I'm glad that JP Peterson hasn't showed his face yet in the squad, or Rudy Page at this stage. So it's positive so far. No, in the squad there's a few selections I wasn't quite sure on. I was quite surprised that Divanaka from the Stormers come up from the Stormers and get selected. But on the whole, I think it was something like 25 uncapped players or something near that amount. So it was quite a large number of uncapped players. I'm probably off on that. Maybe it's only like 15 or something, but it's quite a lot.
17 uncapped players.
17. Right, I went a bit overkill on the 20, but
in a squad of 43.
Yeah, it's
we
quite a
only
big
picked
percentage.
32, so
quite a big percentage of uncapped players. And it's interesting to see how much game time those guys get. In terms of the squad they've picked this week, I expected that most of this team that will be starting against Wales won't be starting against England. So it's surprising to see guys like Jesse Creel and Andre Esterhuizen in that team. But it's interesting. I think it's quite a strong team. Guys like Clogger Smith getting their debut, which would be awesome to see. He's been a favour of this channel for quite a while. And guys like Cohen Bosch there at fullback and Travis Ishmael as well putting on the wing. So it's going to be quite a good game. And but I'm still not the biggest fan of this whole fixture.
No, what do you make about this whole thing? To go to America is a money-making scheme, isn't it? It's a way to roll the dollars in, but it's not gaining traction over there. Like, the Springboks are a storied, I guess they are a brand essentially in the end, but it seems to be the Wallabies have tried it, the Springboks are doing it. It still doesn't have the hold of that All Black brand. Ultimately, it's got to be a failure, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, to me it looks like sort of a commitment that the Springbok board made without really consulting or taking other factors into account. I think first of all, a trip to the US is something that you should do in the end of your tour because you're already going to the Northern Hemisphere and it makes a lot more sense. But in the June-July window, that's when the Northern Hemisphere teams come to you and you have the advantage of staying put and sort of defending your grounds, I suppose. So to jet off to the US after your players have played more than half a season of Super Rugby, playing Washington against Wales and in a fixture that's really not going to grab many people. As you said, the Springboks, even though they're quite a big brand, don't really attract many people in other countries unless those people are former South Africans. Obviously, when they come to Australia or England or places like that where there's a lot of expat South Africans, there's always a big crowd that follows them just because of the South Africans. I'm not sure what the South community is like in Washington. And I don't think it's going to be massive. And I think, I think the fixture with the All Blacks in Ireland a couple of years ago in the US, that's probably the best fixture you can have just because of that huge Irish population in the US. Still a big draw. I think Ireland and New Zealand and Boston would be the ideal game that you could have in the US, but definitely not South Africa versus Wales and Washington, D.C. I've never seen a rugby game happen in DC before, and they're trying to build off the back of the Major League Rugby that's about to come to a close in the US, which has been, which I hear has been quite good this season. But yeah, I'm not too big of a fan of it, and I think it's going to have more disadvantages than advantages.
Yeah, MLR is going well. It's building decent little headway as well. So great for America, but it's great to see the game travelling, but it would be good to be going to places that would build the game a bit more rather than trying to just bring in the dollar notes. But alas, that's what's happening. On the team we picked though, I think this is a really good looking side, and although I fully agree with what you say about how these 23 probably won't be involved in the match, especially in a starting capacity. But when I look at that backline 11 of 15, I do like what I see them. Like Mapimpi yesterday, and I say Creel, Ismail, and Bosch are guys that I would have in my proper test 23, if not a few of them starting as well. So I'm really keen to see how they go. Should be a great little match. Wales, I don't really know what Wales are going to throw out this one. Their season has just concluded. So they're at a completely opposite end of their cycle. So they can really chuck out pretty much whatever they want into that. Are they going to play it with a full series side? I haven't read much into it, whether they're going to do that or play a bit of a B side as well. But I consider this a pretty good South African team as well. So I'm expecting it to go pretty well. A victory for, well, for who is the home team in this? Is it South Africa technically? Is there a home side in this one? But a victory for the Springboks. Is that where you're going with?
I think still a quality side. And one of the interesting things about this side is I think, well, my starting centre combination is starting this week with Esther Hazen at 12 and Kriel at 13. I think that's a perfect combination of size and speed that they've got there. Obviously, Esther Hazen has been one of the biggest number 12 I've ever seen. He can take on the line and is really good at his offloads, and Kriel just being the good, pacey all-around rugby player that he is. I think that's the combination I would have against England. And is maybe trying to get some chemistry between them, which is quite essential with your centre combination in test matches to have that established chemistry. Just guys like Manon and Conrad Smith were good for so many years. They just had that chemistry between them and they played really well together. So I think that might be why they're playing here. If they're not starting against England, I'm going to be quite disappointed because these are the two Africa right now. So I've got South Africa. I haven't written anything down, so I think I'll have South Africa by probably 12.
Oh, 12. See, that's quite close. I think no, that's quite a big margin. My margin I've got is quite close. I do think the Springboks are going to win, but given the type of match it is it going to have a bit of the serious feel to it, or is it going to be a bit of a expose the game and try and be entertaining as possible? And, winning is important, but probably putting on a spectacle is going to be a much bigger thing. Barbarian style, the sort of thing, 40 points per side, margin, exciting, trying to get the fans involved. I can see that's what they'll probably try and do to future-proof the idea possibly for the future as well. So I think it's going to be close, and I've gone the Springboks by 3. But either way, I think it's going to be Springboks close or Springboks by a large margin. Although, last time these two sides met, it wasn't, a thrashing, was it? Because South Africa lost in Cardiff last year.
Please don't remind me.
So, I mean, who knows? Wales to win this one. They're definitely a good enough side. But I'm thinking still the Springboks to win this one to open up the season. So that is it. And, of course, reminder, do go join the SuperBru League for the June Internationals. The details will be on screen. You can go and join that one as well. But that is us for today. Another very long and deep and insightful preview for the weekend's action. Thanks for joining me, Brett. Anyone wants to get hold of you, where can they find you?
If you want to get hold of me, has the banner with me back and forth. Follow me at Twitter at BrettHartley390. And I look forward to seeing you there.
Yeah, he'll have plenty to say on Sunday morning, I think it is.
Yeah.
Are you going to get up at what an ungodly hour it is and watch the game?
Probably not. I'm working all Sunday, so I might have to record it and watch it when I get back from work.
So he'll be abusing the ref for Sunday night. If you want to go.
Yeah.
What the hell are you thinking? Yes. So go and follow Brett on Twitter and give him some abuse on the matches as well. But until next week, no, not next week. Oh, we may be doing something next week for the June Internationals. We'll see how we go. But for today, anyway, we are done and dusted. We'll see you all next time. Thanks for tuning in. Until then, take care.